Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Heather Denniston, and with me today is Linda Fogg-Phillips. And I am so excited to have her on the show today. And this is our last show for 2018. And it's our 52nd show, Linda. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited, and we have some incredible content on habit formation, habit sustaining, all sorts of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful content that we're going to be talking with you about. And so thank you so much for joining me and all of our guests here on the show.
Well, thank you, Heather. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are going to just start with a quick little information from our sponsor. Today, we are talking about the 2019 Wellness Planning Live event that Well Fit and Fed is putting on January 12th. It's a Saturday. It's at 2 o'clock. It's a 2-hour planning event to get you, your wellness goals and aspirations all on the same page with structure, action, and intentionality, and it's just $49. I'm going to put the link below. That will take you to a place where you can find out more about it, and it goes so well with what we're talking about today, because Linda, when you and I first started chatting about you becoming a guest on the show, we were talking about resolutions and why inevitably they often fail, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Now, I want to just share, I didn't tell Linda I was going to tell this story, but I've been following Linda's brother, BJ Fogg, for some time. He is the author of Tiny Habits. And I went to an event in Philadelphia. Was that event in Philadelphia? Yes, in Philadelphia. And I was looking at all the name tags that you would pick up as guests of this event. And I saw Linda Fogg-Phillips there, and I was like, oh my word, I have got to meet this woman, because I knew about BJ's work. I knew you were involved with the Tiny Habit work. And so I was determined in a sea of 500 people to meet you. And the irony is that a girlfriend of mine said, come for lunch. Me and a girlfriend are going for lunch. And who is the girlfriend but Linda Fogg-Phillips? And so that was just so fantastic, because I'm like, I have her for an entire hour of lunch. I can just completely berate her with interview questions. So that's how we fostered our relationship, wasn't it? That's how we met.
Yes, it was. I think it was a providential or serendipitous, however you want to look at it.
I think so too. And so let's just kind of start where you and I started getting into meaty conversation over lunch, and that is on the subject of habits. So tell me a little bit about your background and what brought you into sort of the habit subject matter. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, and the right way to back up around this is, as you know, BJ, my brother BJ Fogg, I've worked with him for over 10 years. He brought me into one of his projects in 2008, and that was a project around Facebook, on how parents were using Facebook and online behavior of adolescents. And so I worked in that space for quite some time. Okay. 5 years ago, when Tiny Habits method was developed, and you realized how impactful it was, and that he really was onto something here, he brought me in. I transitioned from online behavior to human behavior in the form of habit formation. So I worked with, of course, I've known BJ his whole life. When I work with him, I feel like I'm his student. I feel like I'm getting a doctorate from him. And he's just so much fun to work with. But my formal background, I've got a master's in health promotion and exercise physiology. And I went back to school at the age of 50, which was a few years ago, to get that master's degree, simply because it was so important that in the field that I'm working in, that I have that additional education and background.
And you know what I love about that? I stalked your LinkedIn profile, and I saw that there was a space between when you got your business degree and then when you went on to get your exercise phys degree. And I thought to myself, having been a biology, then into chiropractic, then into personal training, I thought, wow, going not only back to school after that long, but back to school in subject matter that you actually hadn't originally studied in. I'm going to give you just like a big high five for that, because that's pretty amazing. And so you got your master's, and then what came from that?
And that was about the same time I was transitioning over to Tiny Habits. So I was working, going to school full time, and I have 8 children. And I think at that time I had 4 children still at home. Oh, and after I completed master's, I love education. I love learning. I wanted to go on to get my doctorate. And my high school daughter, who was at home at that time, said, Mom, please wait until we're gone. So obviously I was a little bit of an absentee mom during that time. But anyway.
And so BJ wrote the book, and you call it the Tiny Habits Method. And so I'd like to learn more about that. People understand what a habit is. They don't necessarily know what a tiny habit is. So can we just talk about the structure of those words? What do they represent?
Oh, absolutely. And Heather, as a little bit of a foundation, most habit formation methods that we've been taught and that are available today that we're aware of don't work. That's very clear.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about before this call about New Year's resolutions. Mm-hmm. And typically, especially those of you that work in the health and wellness space, by week 2 of January, what's happened to our resolutions? They aren't working. And the reason why is because they're relying on willpower. Now, it doesn't matter how much willpower you have or don't have, it's not sustainable. At some time, if you're relying on willpower, you will fail. It will run out.
That makes sense. I still think that's what we need to do, but it does make sense when you say that.
Well, and I like to say it's not our fault because we haven't been taught anything differently, but it is our fault because we aren't learning anything differently. So.
But now we can. So share with us.
With tiny habits, we don't rely on willpower. And there's 3 aspects to what we call the tiny habit recipe. And I'll go, after I explain the 3 different components of it, and then I'll explain why we call it a recipe. Yeah. But there's 3 parts to what we call a tiny habit recipe. The first part is what we call an anchor moment. An anchor moment is an existing routine that you attach a new behavior to. It acts as a trigger. And I'll give you some examples as we go through this. But an anchor moment, say for example, you want to create the habit of flossing your teeth. Of course, we all know from a health and wellness standpoint, that's a very beneficial habit and behavior to have. But many of us don't have that as a habit.
Right.
Why is that? We just don't. So I'll get back to that recipe in just a minute. But the second part, so there's the anchor moment that acts as a trigger. The second part of a tiny habit recipe is what we call the tiny behavior. And this is where a lot of people fail in creating habits because this is where they create habits that are way too big, or they try to, and that's where their willpower runs out. A tiny behavior takes 30 seconds or less to complete.
Oh.
And so you might say, well, I really want the bigger behavior. Yeah, most people do. But yet you plant that little tiny seed. We use a lot of plant metaphors in the tiny habits method. But just like any plant, you've got to plant that little tiny seed in the spot where you want that habit to be and allow time to expand and grow. But you've got to germinate that seed. You've got to at least get it rooted in that spot. And that's the tiny behavior. So going back to flossing your teeth, and this is one of what we call our classic tiny habit recipes. It's after I brush my teeth, that's an anchor moment, that's an existing routine, I will floss one tooth.
I love that.
And it doesn't take any willpower to do one tooth.
No.
Now, some of my clients will say, well, why should I floss one tooth? And, my response is, well, are you doing any right now?
Right.
No, I'm not. I say, okay, great. Let's do one tooth. And that takes 30 seconds or less to do. The third part of the tiny habits method is what we call an instant celebration. And that is an emotion that's attached to the new behavior that reinforces it. It actually has a chemical impact on our brain. It releases endorphins and dopamine. It gives us that feel-good feeling so that we want to do that behavior again and again. So to review, there's the anchor moment, the tiny behavior, and the instant celebration. Those are the 3 parts of a tiny habit recipe. Let's go back to flossing one tooth. That's what you celebrate. You celebrate that one tooth. Now, if you want to go on and floss all of your teeth, absolutely do that. You can, and then celebrate that as well. But the tiny habit is always just that one tooth. There may be days where you might be rushed or, you just maybe aren't feeling good and don't feel up to flossing all of your teeth. That's fine. That's not the habit. The habit is one tooth. Okay. And you can still do one tooth and celebrate and feel that success momentum and keep that habit alive. So. Yeah.
And I love your point about celebration because I don't think many people realize the biochemical downpour that happens of happy hormones when you just go, yay me, like that. It is very powerful. And so I think being very intentional and doing that consistently each time you do that, I think that's such a good point. And so I love that there's that method to it, that recipe.
Yeah. And Heather, just like you said, yay me, that's a very simple celebration. And that instant celebration is different than a reward. I know there's some methods out there that talk about reward. Rewards do not create habits. Now, I'm not opposed to rewards. I love new shoes. I love chocolate. I love to reward myself for accomplishments. But those things don't create habits. It's the instant emotional attachment to that behavior of feeling good about doing that that creates that to be a habit.
Yeah, that's really good, and it's very, very good to recognize that, because I think a lot of folks out there who have tried to lose weight or they've tried to start a fitness program, they focus on the reward, and we've got to go 3 or 4 steps back. And I love that you talk about this tiny piece. You can do more, but it's the tiny piece that you're trying to stay consistent with. So I really, really like that a lot. That's awesome. So we've kind of talked a little bit about what a tiny habit is on the basis, but what else do we need to know there, as far as some foundational principles of this?
Foundational principles are, and I'm going to go to one area of the tiny habits method that people struggle with the most, and that is the instant celebration, the attachment of the positive emotion to that behavior. And I think the reason, I've taught hundreds of people, I've coached literally tens of thousands of people in the tiny habits method over the last 5 years. Okay. And that tends to be a reoccurring challenge for people, is to learn how to celebrate, or know what celebration is. And, I just tell them, look, celebration is part of the method. It's not optional. And yes, you have to do it. It really is, in my opinion, the secret sauce to the tiny habits method. And celebration can be as simple as just even thinking in your head, good job, or way to go. My go-to celebration is always a thumbs up and yes, I did it, or whoo, way to go.
Awesome.
And so it can be very simple. The foundational thing is to really understand the importance of an instant celebration and not to skip that piece.
And you know what I kept forgetting when I first started looking through this, and I am no expert in tiny habit methodology, but the 30 seconds or less also, I think that's really key as well, because I think one of the biggest issues is we try to make this, we bite off way too much, we get way too ambitious, and it's going to be a disaster. So I think that's good too. So you were going to show me a little something on the board. Is that a good thing for us to do right now?
This is a perfect thing, and this will give you a little context to how human behavior works, and also how tiny habits overlays into this model. This is what we call the Fogg behavior model. And here again, this was designed and developed by my brother, BJ. But it is a model that once I walk you through it, it'll take me about 2.5 to 3 minutes to walk you through it. Okay. But once I walk you through it, you'll better understand how human behavior works. I'm sure you'll have some aha moments. And the reason I want to do it on the board is so that we can take you step by step through this process.
Great.
And as a little context to this, especially in the field of health and wellness, and this also ties into willpower, and this is unfortunate, most of my colleagues in this industry focus on motivating their clients. Oh, we just need to motivate them more. They aren't motivated. That's actually not the case. And you'll understand why after you go through this model.
Okay, excellent. What nice printing you have, Linda.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? You're so sweet. It's horrible. All right. This is the Fogg behavior model. Thank you, Heather. You're sweet.
You're welcome.
So behavior, we're going to represent that by B. Behavior happens when 3 things come together at the same time. You have motivation. So this is where motivation is. You have motivation to do the behavior. You have the ability to do the behavior. And you have a prompt or a trigger that tells you what to do. The next step, it prompts you.
Hey, Linda, can you move your thing just a little to your left?
Whoops, there we go.
Yep, that's perfect. That's great, just because I don't want to miss out on that extra letter there. There we go, good.
Hang on. Rearranging my office here. There we go.
That's perfect, there it is.
All right, awesome. All right, so, behavior happens, motivation, ability, and prompt come together at the same time, and that's really key. So as we're looking at this, on this dimension, we have motivation. And motivation can range from high to low. Tell me if I'm off the board here.
Nope, you look good, that makes sense.
Okay, on this dimension, we have ability. And here, ability can also range from high to low. But instead of saying high ability and low ability, when ability is high, we say something is easy to do.
Okay.
And when ability is low, we say something is hard to do.
That makes sense.
Now, motivation and ability are trade-offs. And what I mean by that is if you have high ability and something is easy to do, when prompted, that behavior happens. My little smiley face. Conversely, when you have low ability and something is hard to do, or you have low motivation and something is hard to do, when prompted or triggered, either word, when prompted, that behavior will not happen.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Well, I'll give you the example first. I was going to show you the action line. But the example, this is one that probably we all do every day. We all have cell phones. And when our cell phone rings, that's the prompt. It's telling us to do something. It's a call to action. The call to action is to answer the phone. Now, if we're in a class like this, and I have my phone on silent, but if it were to ring, like it would vibrate, and I know somebody was prompting me to answer the phone, but I didn't have the ability to answer the phone, that behavior would not happen. So my ability would be really low. I also might be motivated, but I didn't have the ability, so that behavior will not happen. So this is what we call the action line. So with the right combination of motivation and ability, when prompted, if the behavior falls above this line, it will happen.
Got it.
Conversely, if it falls below this line, it will not happen when prompted. Let's take the opposite scenario. Imagine that we are out, walking down the street. We're just out for a stroll. Our phone rings. It prompts us to answer the phone. We have the ability to answer the phone, and we see maybe it's our best friend calling, so we're motivated. So that will happen. That falls up here. But let's imagine, here again, our phone rings, another prompt to answer the phone, and we have the ability again to answer the phone. However, we look at who it is, and it's an unknown number. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not really motivated to answer that call. So when prompted, that behavior will not happen because it falls up here.
Yeah.
Okay? So
that makes sense.
So with the tiny habits method, when BJ was looking at this model one day, he realized that this space right in here was a prime space that if a behavior is small enough and easy enough to do, when prompted, that behavior will happen if it's something that you have even a little bit of motivation to do.
Yeah.
Now, something that you have no interest in doing whatsoever, it doesn't matter, how much the prompt is or what the ability is, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
An example of this are the pop-ups that we get on websites. As we're scrolling through websites, you get a pop-up. Well, that falls under here for me. It's down here. Simply because, it's easy for me to click on the pop-up, but I have no motivation at all whatsoever to do. So I am not going to click on that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's helpful. And so, because I want to circle back, make sure we don't miss this point. When in other situations we are learning, you just have to get more motivated. You just have to get more motivated. What you're saying is, no, it has everything to do with the ability and the prompt as well. It's not just motivation. And so all three of those things have to be present for the behavior to take place, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I would say, when you say, oh, I'm just not motivated enough, that might not be the case at all. In fact, it probably isn't the case. Yeah. Look at the ability. How easy is it to do that behavior?
Yeah.
It goes back to flossing one tooth. It's easy to floss one tooth.
Yeah.
And the anchor moment here in the tiny habits method is after I brush my teeth. That's the prompt that tells you to only floss one tooth. Yeah. Now, if you go on and do more, absolutely you can.
Yeah.
But that's, so if something's not happening, take a look at the ability. How do you make it easy for you to do?
And as far as ability, and Linda, can you still see me? I look like okay, good. As far as ability too, that makes me think of when someone's starting a fitness program. Well, going to Orange Theory 20 minutes away is hard. Okay, can you see? There I am. Can you see me now?
I can. Okay, good.
Going to Orange Theory 20 minutes away, buying new shoes, all of that stuff is much harder than doing some push-ups on your bedroom floor. And and BJ has a great example of push-ups in his TED Talk. So go and check that one out because he uses that as an anchor, not using anchor in the same way, but as a foundational story to say, that's how tiny the behavior has to be, and look how it can grow. So I love that. So that's very, very helpful. And so when we're going into the new year and people are starting to think about their wellness aspirations and that kind of thing, how can they implement the tiny habit method into things like, well, I want to change my nutrition and I want to change my fitness? What are your recommendations there?
I love that. What they're saying there is those are what we call aspirations. Those are desired outcomes. Those are not habits.
Okay.
And you got to break it down to, I want to improve my eating habits. Great. That's awesome. But what does it mean? What are those behaviors that will help you improve your nutrition, help you improve the eating habits? It might be, when I walk into the grocery store, I'll go to the produce section first. That's a tiny habit. It might be when I go in the fridge, I will take out, a healthy food item. In fact, one of my clients, I love this tiny habit that he designed. It was when I open up the fridge, I will throw out one thing that's not healthy for me.
Oh, that's good.
Another challenge that people have, you might say, well, can you use tiny habits to stop bad behaviors and bad habits? The answer to that is yes, absolutely you can. Now, BJ has been really careful not to make that statement. I can, because I've worked with clients and I don't have the, Stanford reputation I have to protect like he does.
Yeah.
As you know, he's writing a book right now. And so it was sort of fun to see him be forced into really into how to use tiny habits to stop unwanted behaviors. Because I've said you can for years. Yeah. And I've done it with clients for years. He has now come up with 6 ways that you can use tiny habits to stop unwanted behaviors. I won't steal his thunder. You can read about that when it comes out, even though it's about a year away from being published.
I think that's such a good point. Well, actually, there's several points in there that I want to circle back to. One is we need to understand that it's easier to continue a behavior. It's harder to start a new behavior. It's even harder to eliminate a behavior. So I can see why this was sort of the last piece to come into the puzzle. Yes?
Yeah. And, BJ's always really careful about not making statements that he can scientifically back up.
Right.
And one that he really hadn't spent time on researching. And now he has. So it's really fun to see him come out with these ways and processes that he's now saying, yes, you can.
Yeah.
But let me give you an example of how some of my clients that have, and this is, we all know if we're in health and fitness that drinking sodas is one of the worst things you can possibly do.
Yeah.
It's so unhealthy. Even diet sodas, they are even worse than, in my opinion, than regular sodas. So when I'm working with a client that wants to either reduce or stop drinking diet sodas, that's a stopping behavior, I do use tiny habits. And what we do, we also set up the context, the environment to support that behavior. We remove any option, we reduce the ability to have a diet soda or a Diet Coke, whatever it might be, by removing them from the environment. Yeah. But also what we do is I replace that with seltzer water or LaCroix or whatever, because it still has that same feeling of drinking a soda. That feeling's not going to go away just because the soda's not there. Yeah. But if you say after I open the fridge, I will grab a LaCroix instead of a pepper and then celebrate.
And so it's kind of a combination, because in a way that's also a new behavior. Like you're reaching for something new, and you also in this process. So it's complex, isn't it? The whole habit formation. But I do love that.
Well, it can be. I mean, BJ has a beautiful way of making things really simple. Yeah, complex concepts, complex processes, and breaking them down into really simple methods and models. Very much like understanding how behavior works with the Fogg behavior model. Yeah. And knowing how to create habits with the tiny habits method. Yeah. So
I love it. This is a good time. I just want to show people the website, because you mentioned before that there is a 5-day tiny habit complimentary thing they can do from your website. And all they need to go is tinyhabits.com/join. And they can get, it's a 5-day tiny habits training. Correct?
Well, it's not necessarily a training, but it's an experience. It's a free program. We have trainings for professionals that want to use tiny habits in their practices, and that is an official training. It's our certification program, and it's really, really beefy.
That's great. So my point being, if you want to get a flavor for a little bit more of this information, that's what you want to do, is go there and check that out. Now, one other thing I wanted to circle back to was, if I blank or when, can you go through that again? Because that to me is a really key, is creating that sentence for yourself. And so people can have this as a great takeaway, because even if they just do that and start saying that sentence to themselves, I think that can be so helpful too. After I blank,
so
I will blank. Yes.
This is what we call the recipe. And the reason BJ calls it a recipe is, like any other recipe, you can practice and revise it to your liking. There might, once you design one tiny habit recipe and start practicing it, it might not work exactly like you want it to. That's fine. There's there's no such thing as a failure with tiny habits. If the right piece isn't there or the right ingredient's not there, then change it.
Yeah.
But the tiny habits method, is after that's your anchor moment. That's your existing routine. And I'll give you an example of a tiny habit that's changed my life. So for example, in this case, after my feet hit the floor in the morning, I will say it's going to be a great day. Very simple, easy, tiny habit, but it's changed my mindset and it's changed my life as a result of starting my day with a win, because I also celebrate that. I wake up and say, okay, today is going to be a great day. I may not know there's going to be a great day, or I know I might have a challenging day, but at least I'm starting my day off with a win and the mindset, I'm going to make it a great day.
Okay, that's such a great one. I love that.
So, and just like, the one that you were talking about earlier, the push-up habit, that is another one of what we call our classic tiny habit recipes.
Yeah.
Is I flush the toilet. I mean, who doesn't flush the toilet? We all go at least 7 times a day. And if you're like me and drink a lot of water, it's probably more like 10. But so that's your anchor moment. After I flush the toilet, I would do 2 push-ups.
Yeah.
So this is your existing routine, something that you already do. This is your new behavior that you're wanting to create as a habit. And this is what takes 30 seconds or less to complete right here.
That's awesome. And could you just say a few things about building on this? Because I know BJ talks about, it started with 2, but then ended up being 5, and now he does 12 or 15. What do we have to be careful with as we start that ramp up?
I love that question. You never raise the bar. What I mean by that is, after I flush the toilet, I will do 2 push-ups. You celebrate that. And if you want to do more, absolutely you can. We have people that report to us that they're doing 300 push-ups a day. Well, they didn't start off with 300. They ended up. But yet they start off with 2. Every time they flush the toilet, they celebrate that. And they just continue to build on that. But when I say don't raise the bar, you always celebrate your tiny behavior. You don't expect more.
Got it. The tiny behavior doesn't change. The bar doesn't raise. The tiny behavior stays the same, and you can add on it. And I'm gonna do cardio for 2 minutes. Well, if you do 10 or 15 or 20, it's wonderful. But you're still celebrating just the 2 minutes.
Yes. And if you do more, celebrate that as well.
Yeah.
One of the real keys here, Heather, that isn't obvious as well, is we create what we call success momentum. So when people feel successful, they accomplish more.
Yes.
Success leads to success, and change leads to change.
Yeah.
So helping people change their mindset about what is success for them. Yeah, 2 push-ups is success. Celebrate that.
Yeah.
And if you want to do more, absolutely, that's extra credit. You're being an overachiever.
Yeah.
It's a completely different mindset about how to approach changing behaviors. But what we see, especially with our coaches that are working with clients, we see this consistently, is that the lower the bar is, the more your clients accomplish. I know that sounds, oxymoron. Yeah. But if you have people be successful and feel successful, then they will basically be successful.
Yeah. That's great.
In fact, another concept that we teach our coaches, and I just sort of said this backwards, but you'll understand it, is it's important to focus on helping your clients feel successful.
Yes.
Not on being successful. There is a difference there.
No, and I got that, but you're right to clarify, because somebody listening might, I have to be successful. No. It's just that it's that celebration. It's that feeling, and it can be the tiniest little thing. You're building neural pathways towards success, and you will slip down that nice neural pathway towards success more the more you're celebrating it, and if you can celebrate those small things. So that makes sense. So feeling successful, not being successful, and because that is a moving target, right?
Yeah. The being will come. The being goes on to that. But so often, and you see this a lot in other habit formation methods, is they have you check the box. You track your habits. We're not fans of that, simply because you might do a habit 10 days in a row. But on day 11, if you're sick or something happens and you don't do that habit, what do you focus on? On that one day where you didn't complete that habit. And it starts rewriting your identity or writes your identity. Oh yeah, I'm a failure. I can't do this. Nothing works. Whereas with the Tiny Habits method, we don't focus on that. We focus on when you are successful. And what we do see with the method, and this is some of the research that we have done and are still doing, is it does rewrite your identity to be someone who can be successful in creating new habits and behaviors for yourself. It creates confidence and a belief in themselves.
That's fantastic. Let me just do a quick shout out to those watching. Hillary, I know that my writing is terrible. She made a nice little comment about my writing. And that's why, Linda, I probably noticed yours was so pretty. Thank you, Hillary, for watching. And for the other two folks that are watching, just put in the comments below a new habit you are wanting to implement. So if you can put down below, you can be as cryptic as you want to if you don't want to share publicly, but just, proclaim it. What is this new habit that you want to be starting? And I'll put mine in the comments down below as well. And so let's get some interaction and some conversation going on down there. So Linda, what else am I missing from, if we want to encapsulate this tiny habit for our viewers? First of all, they know where to go to get a little more information, which is tinyhabits.com. They know where to go if they want to download a little bit of a program to give them more information as well, which is tinyhabits.com/join. And they can get BJ's book at any time. That's available on Amazon and it's where I got mine. And he's doing a new book. And when's that going to be out?
That will be out in 2020. We think it's January of 2020. And
obviously, research-based is if that's when it's coming out. Yeah.
And that will be about tiny habits specifically. Right. And we'll also share a lot of our case studies, experiences, some of our coaches' case studies.
Yeah.
And when I say our coaches, it's not people that we hire or pay. It's people that have gone through the certification program, are using this methodology in their practices. And
I was just going to mention that. And that is, if you are a fitness instructor, if you're a teacher, if you're anyone who coaches, leads, manages folks in implementing new behaviors, this is a great program for you. So it's a certified training program on tiny habits, and that information is also available on the website. And so that's a tremendous program. So any little nugget that we want to leave with our viewers?
Yes, there's a couple of them, if you'll give me.
Please.
One nugget is it does not take 21 days to create a habit. That's a myth. That's a fallacy. You can create a habit in as quickly as 5 days or less. It depends. Wow. It might take 10 days, or it might take 3 months. But it really did. But in our research, everybody that goes through our free 5-day program has been able to at least create one habit in 5 days or less. And it's largely dependent on the anchor moment and the tiny behavior and the celebration that they've attached to that.
Fantastic.
So that can be much more quickly. Tiny habits has given people hope and evidence that they can change. It's a skill. Habit formation is a skill. I don't think anybody.
Tiny habits has given people hope and
evidence.
Hope and evidence that they can change. And you know what, Linda, that is important right now, because people are transitioning into 2019 and they're going, well, I sucked at my resolutions last year. It's just going to happen again. They're discouraged. They want it. They're disenchanted. And this is an opportunity for them to go, no, you weren't wrong. You just didn't have the right tools. And so I love that you just said that, hope and evidence. And so feel empowered, people. This is, you absolutely can create change in your life, and be it a wellness aspiration or anything else to make your life more positive and positive for those around you. This is a tremendous format to use.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Did I interrupted you? So was there anything else?
No, I was just going to say, the other little takeaway is be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Give yourself some flexibility and realize that you're not going to be perfect. The Tiny Habits method is not about being perfect.
Yeah.
It's about figuring out what works and implementing it, and realizing that, there are habits for seasons of our lives as well. So once you say, I'm going to have this habit from now on, that's not the right way to look at it. It's like, okay, I'm going to try this habit and see how it works for me, and whether or not how long I want to practice that. So be kind.
I love that. Be kind to yourself. And two things too. One is, I think sometimes we think we're supposed to be implementing habits and we actually don't want to. We're doing it because people are telling us to do it. So I think that's important to identify that. And I love that you said, be kind to yourself. This isn't a perfect science. And I say to people, it's a marathon, not a sprint, guys. This is, when you're looking at behavior change, it's get up, fall down, get up, fall down, get up, fall down. And just as long as the last thing is a get up, then you're winning. So that's good. So, geez, Linda, thank you so much for sharing with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. And, Heather, anybody that wants to reach out to me, you're welcome to share my email address or my social media. There, I'm here to help people have, achieve the success that they want to achieve in their lives through the habits.
Fantastic. I'll put, I will put your Facebook information down below. If you want to put your email address, that would be great too, because people want different ways to get a hold of you. They want to know more about what you do personally. And so that would be fantastic. So guys, make sure you go down into the comments and keep checking back there, because there are lots of links. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just come on back to Facebook and check out all the comments, because I know there'll be some good links for you there too. So remember, Junk You Should Know Show does live forever on YouTube. It airs on Facebook on the Well Fit and Fed page, obviously. And we always have incredible, intelligent, savvy, wonderful guests, and that's no exception today. Linda, I've felt very, very honored to have you here today. And I look forward to us connecting again. I know I'll be crawling to your door another time to beg you to come on the show, because you've just provided such great content today. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, Linda, stay on for a bit. We're going to wave goodbye to everybody. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful end to your year. We'll see you in 2019. And we were going to start off the year right with a bunch of great guests. So do come on back, noon PST on the Well Fit and Fed Facebook page, or on the Well Fit and Fed YouTube channel. So we will see you again, guys. Have a happy new year.